All right, engineers, siege degenerates, and confused infantrymanes who clicked anyway, welcome back to Engineering Commander Spotlight, Episode 2. Now, before the comments explode with, "Where's Smite?" and "Gumbo, you promised," relax, breathe, touch grass. We will absolutely get to the Smite commanders. But first, we gotta talk about Steven. Because this is the commander that half of you are secretly cooking, the other half are scared of, and the rest are still pretending doesn't exist. This series is all about answering the questions people actually have, not just speed running to the shiny button everyone's drooling over. So today we're breaking down Steven, why he's confusing, why he's underrated, and why he might already be doing more work than you think, even before Smite enters the chat. So grab your calculators, hide this video from your R5, and let's spotlight Steven. All right, let's talk about Steven's active skill, Victor of Vasuli. And yeah, this skill is low-key doing cardio because it works harder the closer you get. At range, this is a single target skill hit for 800 damage factor. That's solid, nothing crazy, respectable, pays taxes, shows up on time. But the second Steven gets into melee range, boom, 1500 damage factor. Same button, same skill, just closer. This skill is basically saying run up or miss out. Now, it doesn't stop there, because Lilith said, what if we add seasoning? After the hit, you get damage over time for 2 seconds, 200 per second at range, 350 per second at melee. So if you're in melee, you're getting slapped for 1500 up front, then 700 extra damage over time, just as emotional damage. And then, because why not, Steven hits you with the "I'm not done yet" mechanic. For the next 2 seconds, every time you do a basic attack, you get a mighty heal of 300. Not skill damage, not conditional, just hit things, get healed. This is huge because it means faster attack speed means more healing, longer trades means more value, and yes, this is screaming rage cycle synergy and brawling strength. All right, skill 2 is called No Rest for the Righteous. And I say this with love, this skill is so basic it should be in line ordering a pumpkin spice latte. No combos, no conditional math, no if the moon is full and you blink twice. It's just 35% siege defense. That's it. That's the tweet. Which, don't get me wrong, siege defense is huge. That's real value. That keeps your expensive rocks from evaporating. But then Lilith throws in the quality of life buff that every siege player has been begging for since 2024. When you're not in combat, you get an extra 20% siege march speed. So suddenly, your trebuchets, which normally move like they're powered by vibes and regret, are now doing laps like Formula One race cars. You're rotating faster, you're repositioning easier, you're actually arriving before the fight ends. This skill isn't flashy, it doesn't crit, it doesn't make thumbnails glow, but it quietly makes siege play less miserable. And honestly, that alone makes it S tier for sanity. All right, next skill, and yes, this is where things start getting more interesting. This next skill is one of those passives that looks boring until you realize it's secretly deleting half the damage you take. And yes, I learned this the hard way. So, let's talk about Defender of Lipnik. And if you're a siege player, this skill is basically an all-damage reduction button wearing a trench coat. First part, 15% ranged counterattack damage reduction. Now here's the thing. For siege, that's basically all the damage you take. If you're playing correctly, you're sitting back, lobbing rocks, eating ranged counterattack damage all day. So cutting that by 15% is massive. Unless, and I say this from personal experience, you're a noob like me and get swarmed down, in which case, yeah, this skill cannot save you from bad life decisions. But, played properly, this is real, consistent survivability. Now, the second part is where it gets sneaky. You get a 10% chance to trigger a 25% ranged normal attack damage bonus. And this procs off ranged basic attacks. Not actives, not taking damage, just keep shooting. So what does this mean? More basic attacks equals more procs. Longer fights equals more value. Siege doing actual damage instead of emotional damage. All right, this is where Steven stops being respectable and starts warming up. Skill 4 is called All Men Must Serve, and this is the ramp mechanic that quietly turns your damage from meh into why is that number so big? Every ranged basic attack has a 40% chance to add a stack, up to 15 stacks max. Each stack has a 15-second cooldown, but, and this is the important part, every new stack resets the cooldown. So once you get rolling, yeah, this thing basically never turns off. Now, what do the stacks do? Each stack gives plus 2% attack, minus 0.5% defense. At max stacks, that's 30% attack, x 7.5% defense. And for Siege, that's an insane trade. Siege doesn't win by being tanky. Siege wins by not getting touched and deleting people from a distance. So this skill rewards consistent uptime, scales the longer you fight, trades a tiny bit of defense for a ton of damage. And if you're thinking, okay, Steven's starting to feel kind of cracked now, good, because don't click away yet. That next skill, that's the one that takes Steven from average commander to Michael Jordan of Siege skill damage, or LeBron if you're under 30. And yeah, that one changes everything. All right, last skill before we jump into talent trees and pairings. And yeah, this is the one that ties the whole kit together. This skill is called Cosmic Forest, and this is where Steven officially stops pretending to be normal. First, it gives a flat 10% range skill damage. Nice and clean, we love free damage. But here's where it goes feral. Whenever Steven deals range skill damage, and yes, that means active skills and instant procs, there's a 20% chance to deal extra AoE damage to up to 3 nearby targets. This isn't just splashing vibes, this is a 500 damage factor. Now, it does have the standard 15% reduction for extra target, but that still hurts, especially when you realize this skill has a 10-second cooldown, which means, it's basically up every skill cycle. So what ends up happening is, every active skill can splash, every instant proc can splash, and Steven casually starts damaging people who weren't even invited to the fight. This turns Steven from single-target siege guy into a full-on AoE damage monster, deleting clumps, punishing bad positioning, and farming value in the background. And that's why, before we even talk talents, before we even talk pairings, Steven already looks dangerous. All right, now that you know what this commander actually does, let's get into talent trees and why certain setups make this absolutely unhinged. All right, if you made it this far, congratulations. Steven is officially not mid anymore. Now let's make him annoying. Let's talk talent trees. You can see everything up on screen right now, so I'm not going to read every box like it's bedtime. We're just hitting the important stuff. If you want a full slow breakdown of the skill damage tree, don't worry, I've already done that, and I'll link that video at the end of this one in a card. For Steven, I personally prefer to max the skill damage talent tree. The reason is simple: faster rage cycles and more skill damage boosts. And faster rage cycles are huge here because more rage equals more active skills. More active skills equals more healing. More healing plus more damage means better trades. Steven scales hard with getting his skills off as often as possible. Every extra cycle means more AoE procs, more sustain, and more value over time. You can flex into other trees depending on playstyle, but if your goal is maximizing what Steven already does well, Full skill damage is where this commander starts feeling unfair. Now let's talk about how to actually pair him, because now that you've seen the kit, Stephen doesn't need help surviving, he needs help choosing violence. Stephen plus John. If you want the most balanced pairing, John is your guy. John gives solid stats, extra buffs, and most importantly, bonus damage when hitting lower health targets, which stacks perfectly with Stephen's sustained pressure and AoE. This pairing is consistent, reliable, and great for long trades. Not flashy, but your reports will quietly look better than everyone else's. Stephen plus Babur. Now, if you're feeling emotional and want to hit very, very hard, Stephen plus Babur is the pairing. This is pure damage. High burst, heavy pressure, and absolutely zero concern for anyone's morale. This pairing exists to delete health bars and ask zero follow-up questions. You won't be as tanky as Gaja, you won't be subtle, but someone on the other side is gonna feel it. Stephen plus Afonso. And finally, if you want chaos, Stephen plus Afonso turns this march into a full-on AoE damage monster, the kind that cavalrymanes have nightmares about. This pairing just sits there splashing damage everywhere, punishing clumps, and slowly convincing Cav players to check under their bed before logging in. If your goal is creating pain for groups instead of individuals, this is it. All right, that's Stephen. If you thought he was mid before this video, I hope your reports heal quickly. If you learned something today, leave a like. Not because I asked nicely, but because the algorithm rewards obedience. If you're enjoying this Engineering Commander Spotlight series, hit subscribe. More siege tech, more damage, and more people asking, why does this hurt so much in Alliance chat are on the way. And go ahead, comment below. Tell me who you're pairing Stephen with, or tell me why I'm wrong so I can ignore you peacefully. I'll see you in the next episode, and if you're a cavalry main, sleep light.
Gumbo in the pot, thick steam in the air. Season it heavy, got the spices to scare. My siege drops fire, watch the towers crumble. Archers take flight, but they fumble in the jungle. Blades clash loud, infantry in the grind. Cavalry charge, but they fall to behind. It's the flavor of war, every bite is a lesson. Pew-Tang clan's the ultimate weapon. Pew-Tang clan ain't nothing to mess with. Pew-Tang clan.